Welcome back, race fans. A very good evening to you wherever you're joining us from around the world this evening. Welcome to round 3 of the Alliance Sim Racing V8 Supercars series. This is season 5, and tonight the championship rolls into one of the toughest circuits on the calendar, the streets of Long Beach, California. It is tight, it is technical, and it punishes even the smallest mistake. This is a street circuit in every sense of the word. We've got concrete walls, we've got narrow margins, and almost no room to recover from any error. You're going to have to be switched on from the very moment you roll out of the pits tonight. And in these V8 supercars, with the weight, the raw power, and the tiny tyres on them, it's going to be even more brutal, which of course is what we're here for. My name is Jared Cole, and I'm joined in the booth once again this evening by my good friend Josh Harris. Josh, welcome back to it. Mate, Long Beach, could there be another circuit outside of Australia that is more quintessentially supercars than this? I tell you what I'm looking forward to most of all, of course, is it's not even lap one, turn one. It's actually the final turn of lap one that I'm most interested to see tonight, because that hairpin here at Long Beach is something else in just about any car in the iRacing stable. I reckon we're in for utter chaos tonight. I have my finger poised over the race control comms here just to keep an eye out for what I'm predicting will be a huge number of safety car call-outs tonight, but we'll see. We'll see. The weather beautiful as always, 18 degrees, 33 degree track temperature tonight. The format tonight, 2 race events, 16 laps sprint for race 1. Race 2 will be the longer of the two. 40 laps tonight with 2 compulsory pit stops across that period and a 70% fuel capacity limit for the event. The qualifying session is going on right now, and we are just a couple of minutes away from the drivers finishing up with that. Most have already set their times, just a couple still out there. So before we do get underway tonight, let's take a look at how the championship is looking so far. And it's really not a massive surprise to see some of the names that we've got here, Josh. Wayne Walker continuing his domination here, out in front after just 2 rounds by 70 points over Ken Latta. But Rain Campbell, Jamie Dykes, Scott Gamble and Matt Vanderkraan all still in it. There's just it's going to be a lot of work, honestly, to catch Wayne Walker. Obviously, drop rounds will come into it and perhaps level the field a little bit, but he has been almost unstoppable so far.
Points are up for grab, and there's nothing that guarantees Wayne or even Ken Latta having the best of it as we move forward. There's absolutely it's still up in the air. It's pretty early on. We're only 2 rounds into a 10-round season. A lot to play for, and tonight's one of those nights, Jared. As you said, there is drop rounds that come into it, but tonight's one of those nights where things can go sideways really quickly. Lots and lots of concrete. Lots of hard stops with no runoff, and places like the hairpin that you suggested, and also the fountain, where on lap 1 so much can happen. The slightest touch can put you all the way to the back of the field. So everything to play for tonight. But really, I'm not paying a huge amount of attention to the championship ladder at this point. There's a couple of tough tracks to get through before we really start being too concerned with who's where.
No, still very early days, absolutely, and I'm glad the folks at home got to catch the last of that. My apologies to all for this slight issue we've had with Josh's audio. I swear I haven't been talking to myself since the start of the broadcast. It just seems that way. It is good to have you back with us, mate, and you just have to bring some of that amazing knowledge that everyone missed through tonight's race instead. It's not so much
I'm pretty used to just chatting and no one listening, so it's fine.
Really just another night here in the Simple Broadcast booth. We're all about it. We're getting ready to go racing, so let's take a look at how the drivers have stacked up as the official results come through from qualifying. And this is how we're looking for race number 1 tonight. Matt Vanderkraan taking pole alongside Scott Gamble, then Wayne Walker and Ken Latta on the second row. Dean Logsdale and Rain Campbell behind them. ahead of Mark Poynton and Sean Vandermeer, and then Luke Orman and Michael Stewart rounding out the top 10. We go a little further back through the field, Lorne McKee and Jamie Dyke alongside each other, then Daniel Hall and James Hardy ahead of Chad Varga and Stephen Varga, Michael Whiting and Andrew Rushworth ahead of Chris Miller and Alistair Bales. Then David Coleman and Dylan Sipple will line up alongside each other ahead of Simon Farrington and Mick Clifton. Phil Manuel, and we're going to get that name right for you tonight, Phil, alongside Troy Sipple, Damon Fisher and Brad Grant behind them, then Peter Sattler and Nick Heusler rounding out the 30, with Andrew Johnston and John Latham, Craig Rose and David Logsdale, then Rick Vigar and Todd Martin ahead of Ashley Howell rounding out the rest of the list. So it's going to be a very, very long lineup, 37 cars into the fountain for the first time. Pretty ominous, I reckon, Josh.
Yeah, absolutely. Turn 1 really fans itself out. Turn 1 is a great opportunity down the straight here to go 3, 4, sometimes even 5 wide. But you have to get that all gathered back up and all into a single file by the time that you reach the fountain. I can safely assure you that it is a very, very difficult task in one of these Gen 3 supercars, and even the slightest of touches on that transition of weight as you go through the fountain is really, really catastrophic. I would not be surprised at all to see a car facing backwards in the fountain pretty early on.
Yeah, I think you're on the money there, mate. It's there's going to be a pile up here. I can feel it. The atmosphere is electric as always, but tonight I think it's the anticipation of that first safety car. It's look, I'm watching Todd Martin and Ashley Hall down the back, and I'm just thinking, what are they going to actually do here when they get to the fountain and they're faced with a roadblock of about 20 cars all piled in there. I'm hoping we get away with this.
It's really important at a track like this, Jared, to drive really smart, and when you do, if you are buried in the pack and you do get down towards the fountain, it's really important to sacrifice a little bit of that time and make sure that you're covering the brakes and doing all those sorts of things so that you can take avoiding action, because it's bound to happen. What we really hope for is that we don't just see car after car after car ploughing in at full speed, not paying a huge amount of attention to what's going on around them. However, time will tell. Hopefully cooler heads prevail and we get some really good racing, because that is one thing. This track is high risk, but it's also really high reward. This place produces great racing, great overtaking. There's just a couple of places where it can go wrong really quickly, so the drivers do need to have a calm head about them tonight.
Well, we'll see just how calm it is. We're about to get underway here, folks. Get your predictions in. Who's going to be the first to end up in the wall here at Long Beach? Street circuits are a lot of fun in a Gen 3 supercar every time. We're getting word from the race control officials that we should be just about ready to go. And here we are, green flag at the back of the pack, all the way back the straight here at Long Beach. The lights come up, Vanderkraan and Gamble on the front. Who's going to get the jump? And we are away for race number 1. Vanderkraan, a very, very good start. Gamble matches him and gets underway. The top 5, top 6, staying pretty clean, but immediately we're sideways. We're not even into turn 1, and we've got a car sideways. That looks like Daniel Hall and Sean Vandermeer getting caught up in that. The rest of the field somehow managing to avoid more chaos at the back. As we see one of the Quantum Racing cars into the wall, Daniel Hall going down the field. David Logsdale getting caught up in it as well. We go through the fountain for the first time, and already cars getting just a little sideways, but thankfully most of the field managing to get themselves sorted out as we make our way through. The list of incidents absolutely piling up in our telemetry here, folks. We will have to go back and take a look at them all, because lap 1 is underway, and Vanderkraan out in front has avoided it all. Definitely the place you want to be starting here tonight, Josh.
Yeah, absolutely. Disappointing would be the way that I would describe that race start. At least 3 or 4 different incidents that I saw unfolding. A couple that didn't end up as big as they could have, but certainly, not the smallest. And we see there an Angry Birds car. I'm not sure who that was. Maybe Varga.
Rick Vigar is into the pits.
But we see there one of the Angry Birds cars really going wide, clouding that wall. So easy to do around here. And there's your beloved hairpin, Jared. A few different incidents across this first lap means that there is a little bit of spread across the field, but just look at how slow these cars have to take this corner, and it is nearly one lane. We see these cars checking up to the point of almost being stopped just to get through what is an incredibly tight chicane, and we do see the safety car rolling out on track. Not surprising. I don't know many races at Long Beach that get through the first lap without a safety car, but unfortunately it looks like one of the cars in that very early race from that very early incident from the very start line, damaged beyond repair and needed to tow, and it looks like 3 different people have all had to tow straight into the pits and get their car serviced, which is such a shame.
I stand corrected. Rick Vigar actually in the safety car this evening, which explains the jump to pits that we saw before, and not surprised, honestly, to see that here tonight. So we'll have to just update a few things on our end to make sure that we don't count his results this evening, because he is behind the wheel of the GT3 Mustang, which frankly is a little unfair to take that racing against these supercars.
It is. I think that means that it was Varga that we saw heavily in the wall just here at this corner. Obviously missed his braking point and straight into the tyre wall with quite a bit of damage to the front of the safety birds. Goodness me, Jared, of the Angry Birds car. But last time I saw it was still out on track, and I can see there Vargs is still in his 10th position. If it is Vargs, it's a wounded car, and it will be interesting to see now how he goes when racing resumes at full speed.
Yeah, that it will be, and we'll just keep an eye on this. I want to go back and take a look at some of those incidents though, because the list is fairly long, so we'll jump to it as quickly as we can and get through a few of them. The first of them, Sean Vandermeulen off the line, just getting all sorts of loose, a little bit of nudge from behind, and then chaos as he gets speared across the track. And honestly, the pace going backwards there, just getting pushed along. Really fairly lucky in the end to not have more damage. And Dean Logsdale, of course, just getting caught up in it a little further down. In fact, it looks as though he's had a big disconnection, and then all of a sudden phasing through. So that's not helped at all for cars into turn 1. We'll take a look at Chris Miller, who got caught up in this as well, as he's come around turn 1 and then into the fountain. That looks as though just a little bit of a nudge here and there, a little bit of checking up, and that looks like it might have been Michael Fisher from Fisher Motorsports up against the wall there. Michael Whiting, rather. We'll just see if judges, here we go. So Whiting through turn 1. How does he end up sideways in the fountain? Is there a touch here? And sure enough,
yep,
gets spun around. There's not enough room to go 2-3 wide there, folks. So unsurprising in the end to see that. But a rough start for a lot of cars. You can see them just stopped there in the fountain, and have a look at this chaos back at the start line. We've got an Angry Birds car trying to reverse its way to the pits with a blown motor by the look of things. This is John Latham just over to the wall there. Absolute mess, that one.
Street circuit carnage, I would call that, Jared. It's often in these street circuits, it's so hard to really dissect where everything starts and finishes, because the smallest things have the biggest consequences. And you know, we move away tonight from our normal permanent race circuits that have runoff areas and recovery zones, and you know, you make some of those mistakes that we saw, and they result in maybe a car sliding across the grass. But here it results in 3, 4, 5, 10 cars all piled up. What we know though is our cars are back single file. The safety car has pulled away. Matt Vanderkraan has control of the field. Very long run, Jared, from this point down to the start line. So Matt Vanderkraan has a huge amount of time up his sleeve that he can decide when to go. If it was me, I'd be going early and I'd be accelerating, catching all those people coming through through that final hairpin, not being able to get going. But Matt Vanderkraan's not me, and Matt Vanderkraan's waiting as long as he can. He has now jumped. He has got not a bad run, and he has immediately put 2 tenths on Scotty Gamble. But I don't think that that's quite enough. I reckon that he's going to have to cover down here into turn 1. He doesn't. He takes a racing line, and these guys all file in nicely, one after the other. Certainly the first 5 or 6 cars here together, one after the other.
Yeah, I think this is one of the few tracks where being in single file actually makes for a much cleaner restart. Usually, at just about any other track, bar a couple of the street circuits, you're expecting chaos to turn one after a safety car restart. Here, I don't think anyone's silly enough to try and go too wide after seeing what happened through the fountain the first time. We've got moves happening all over the place. Ken Ladder, Jamie Dyke mixing it up here as we come into the turn. You'll see Rain Campbell there taking a dive up the inside. He finds himself alongside Jamie Dyke, and Mark Poynton threatening in the background as well. So the three of them are going to have to sort this out very quickly because there is not enough room to go side by side here. Rain Campbell up the inside forces Poynton to pull out. So Campbell will just drop in behind Jamie Dyke and continue the run to the hairpin. Let's keep an eye on just the absolute pace that gets knocked off here. That's certainly a lot quicker than you see on lap one, of course. Dyke lighting up the rear wheels as he tries to get a run down the main straight. And this is where we start to get a little bit processional through a lot of this, Josh, with the exception of some of the braking points at the end of these straights. That's about the best opportunity they're going to have tonight to make a pass, because otherwise these turns are just too tight.
They are, but one of the really cool things about Long Beach is that there's a couple of points where it's a fantastic opportunity for people to make those little mistakes. There's a number of different points on this track, Jared, where your run can be compromised. This corner here is a really good example. Off camber corner exit. So we see a lot of people there make a little mistake, have a big slide, and that really opens up the opportunity for a dive into the left-hander here. And then this is another great opportunity where there's a couple of different lines. Easy to miss your brake marker, easy to run wide and bump the fence, and then you're presented with this nice long run down into another big braking stop zone. It is difficult, like any street circuit, to pass and to manufacture a pass, but what we do have the opportunity for is people to make little mistakes all on their own, and when people make mistakes on their own, it gives you the opportunity to get the pass done. So really what this race is all about being patient and waiting for the car in front to make a mistake, because they are bound to do it.
Speaking of mistakes from being impatient, Rain Campbell getting locked up into the hairpin there as he thought about a dive up the inside of Jamie Dyke. It's cost him about 5 or 6 tenths from where he was compared to Dyke, and has really brought Mark Poynton back into it, which is a shame. We go back to Luke Allman, who's just off the back of Law McKee right now as they come into the fountain once again. This battle for 11th, we've got a few cars in amongst it. Andrew Rushworth's there, and not too far behind. Chad Vigar, Chris Miller, Dylan Sipple, Alistair Bales, all still there in the line. No one really getting a lot of separation, save for the front three as we jump forward. Matt Vanderkrant, Scott Gamble and Wayne Walker with Ken Ladder, opening up about a second and a half here back to Jamie Dyke. So these four are really the only ones with any gap behind them in the event of any slight missteps through these turns. They're the ones who have just a little bit more room to play with.
Yeah, they do. I'd expect to see Jamie Dyke move forward, and hopefully Rain Campbell can work with Jamie Dyke and move forward and latch onto that group and turn it into a six-way battle for the lead. Unfortunately, Rain doing things like he did the previous lap and sticking the nose in at the hairpin is going to be detrimental to not only himself but Jamie. So, like I said, key to this track is patience and waiting for the car in front to make a mistake. And unfortunately, if you push things too hard or you try too hard to force a mistake, often what happens is you end up getting collected in that, as we do now see a couple of cars really battling here. Bales, Sybil and Clifton all making these cars work as hard as they possibly can around that long front straight, which is not very straight at all, Jared. A great big turn in it, and one that is actually tight enough in these cars that you do have to lift just through the middle, just make sure the car keeps on turning. It's a fantastic run from the hairpin down to turn one, but these guys locked in a battle for 17th. Sheep Station's in the mid-pack, and they are really having a crack. We see there Clifton just had a look to the inside, thought he'd see. They disappear past the car facing backwards. I'm not 100% sure who that was, but there was someone there, Jared, facing the wrong way, which is not what you want to see.
Yeah, well, we've got a few incidents that have gone on in the background here, and I think that might have been Todd Martin facing the wrong way there. We also will go back and take a look at Brad Grant having a bit of a moment, and let's see just the recovery from that here. I'm not quite sure what set that up. It looks like it might have been Martin and Grant coming together to go back a little further into turn 1. So this is Todd Martin. Keep on Brad Grant up ahead. Comes through turn 1. Grant gets all sorts of sideways into the wall. Martin's got nowhere to go. The rest of the drivers managed to sneak on through, but both Grant and Martin are just stuck, essentially, as they wait for the rest of the traffic to pass through. And then, unfortunately for James Hardy, we'll see if it's the same spot, but he's actually had a bit of an issue on his own. Now, whether it's a bit of a nudge here, as we see Norm McKee come up the inside, Hardy comes across, turns himself across the front of McKee's car, and then just gets hit time and time again. And that's a really, really awkward spot to find yourself stuck.
Yeah, that's a difficult one. That's really waiting for a nice big gap on your relative screen, making sure that you've got the ability to flick spin the car, but very, very tough and a very daunting position to be, because you just absolutely can't see what's coming. As we do now jump to the battle for 14th, as we see these guys, just a bit of a queue starting to form, and they might happen to get onto the back of Dylan Sipple, although he's a little bit further up the road. But a nice little battle brewing here, Jared. Plenty of cars involved. As we see, we can look down our totem and see that absolutely everywhere there is just battles brewing up. There's no one able to pull away, and that really leads, or stems from the fact that it is so hard to pass here. So you can defend pretty easily. And you can really start to stack those cars up behind, and just the whole way through this field, lots and lots of battles, as we see there.
Chris Moore looks like the inside of Vigar. Well,
just in the background, I noticed, Jared, there was a 9.5 Sim Sport car that looked like it was pulling up on the main straight. So it'll be interesting to see whether we get another safety car if a tow is required. But these guys, they're not prepared to wait for that safety car. They are continuing to battle. And as you said, it was close. There was plenty of stuff going on there. And we now jump back a little bit up more towards the front. Rain Campbell continues to be all over the back of Jamie Dyke. There is no doubt that Jamie Dyke is holding Rain up here, but Rain just can't find a way past. If there's one thing I can say about Jamie Dyke, it's that even when he's not the fastest car around, he certainly knows how to drive these things well, and is able to make that Mustang pretty darn wide.
Yeah, absolutely. But the Rain Campbell fans here in support tonight, which is great to see. Hope you're enjoying the coverage, guys, and thanks for the kind words. We do our best to bring you the very best coverage that we can, and certainly Rain is doing everything he can tonight to get past Jamie Dyke. Meanwhile, though, the gap out in front just starting to open up a little further. Ken Latta here has dropped back off the front four as Vanderkraan, Gamble and Walker up the pace, which is not surprising, is it? We see it often enough from all three of them. But yeah, Jamie Dyke, Rain Campbell locked in it. We're talking about it being a bit hard to pass. Jamie Dyke right now up 7 positions though from where he started this race, so he's managed to make his way through the pack and avoid a few bits of chaos.
Not to take anything off Jamie, but I think that a lot of that was lap 1 lucky. He definitely had a good start. I noticed Jamie diving straight to the outside off of his start, so he obviously got good drive and picked up a few positions. But I noticed that he was up 7 by the end of lap 1, so he's obviously benefited from a little bit of the chaos. But what he is doing now is a really fantastic job of holding Rain Campbell behind him, and you can just see there once again, second lap in a row that I've noticed it. Rain Campbell rat-a-tat-tat on the back bar through that hairpin. He's certainly got the memo. Don't try and dive up the inside. Just stay with Jamie Dyke here. The thing that I've noticed though is that these guys are continuing to rein in on the back of Ken Latta. So pretty similar lap times at the moment, Jared, but every now and then, whether it be that Ken makes a little mistake or these guys just put in a really nice lap. But one thing that I'm noticing is that fishy car in front is just getting closer and closer.
Speaking of the fishy car in front, Whiting has caught right back up to Bales. It does look like, though, we're about to have a safety car out on track, and indeed, I think it's been called. We'll just have to wait and see when exactly that safety car does roll out of the pits. It'll be probably at the end of this lap as Van der Kraan comes around. And that will be because we've had a bit of an issue. This might be Brad Grant again, who's had a big moment. Let's check this out as he comes down the straight. We've got yeah, you're right, we've got a car parked off to the side in the background. That actually looked like Ashley Hall's car. What's happened to Brad Grant? Has he just been waiting for the traffic to go through there, or? He has, okay. So that's not actually the issue then. It could well be. We'll go back and take a look, because that was Ashley Hall off to the side. Has he popped the motor? Has he put it in? Oh, big moment there. And that's what's ended Ashley Hall's race. Huge damage to the front end already.
Oh, and Jamie Dyke there did a great job to miss that. That was a huge incident, and as I alluded to a little while ago, Jared, the corner on the straight, it's an interesting phrase that, but the corner on the main straight here at Long Beach is actually tight enough that these cars want to understeer into the outside wall. But of course, one of the things associated with these cars is that if you get off the throttle too quickly, you can get that snap of oversteer. And that's what it looked like there to me. Hall pushing hard and got that snap of oversteer, which has just turned him straight into the outside wall. And that was a huge incident. I noticed that the safety car boards have been cancelled, so it looks like that has not eventuated, maybe a little bit of miscommunication, but we do now focus in on Chris Miller. I'll be honest, this is the first time I've seen Chris's fishy car. I've got to be honest, Jared, all of the fishy cars catch your eyes, but holy smokes, you cannot miss that thing, can you?
He does stand out just a little in the pack. It's a resplendent kind of colour, isn't it? I've said it before already this season, but Chris Miller definitely on track for the brightest car this season, despite the couple of fluoro green, I think we'll call it, fishy cars in there as well. So plenty of them, and yeah, look, I think the safety car was keen to jump out there. We did see Rick Vigar get in the car and start it up, but Ashley Hall, credit to him, despite such a massive hit, actually managed to get the car off the track and to a point where it was no longer needing to be towed, could just be rolled off without interrupting the race. So credit to him. That is a fair effort considering.
Yeah, that's fantastic, and good to see these guys, the way they go about their racing, trying to keep it as realistic as possible and doing a fantastic job of working there with Ashley Hall to get that car to a place that it was safe and can be recovered back to the pit lane, although plenty of damage, and if he has already used his quick repair, a long time to fix that car, and I can't see him getting out in the next 3 laps, Jared.
No, it does seem pretty unlikely, based purely on the amount of damage. As we see Scott Gamble continuing to do everything he can to stay in touch with Van der Kraan. Van der Kraan's got some real pace here tonight. It is one of his favourite craps after all. And we'll keep an eye on it and just see what happens. But further back through the pack, we've got a few little bunches now starting to form up with just a couple of laps to go here. And Vargs is holding on to ninth by the skin of his teeth. Lon McKee right on his tail as they come down towards turn 1. McKee looks to go wide, tries to drag Varga across, can't get there. And in the end, Varg's just very, very comfortable and controlled in his driving. Luke Orman now from Team AJR just getting on the back of this one as well. So plenty going on right throughout the pack, honestly, as we see there Luke Orman, the shot on screen of him working the wheel in his rig.
And might I say, wearing a far more fire-appropriate uniform than one Mr. Vandermeulen happened to be wearing last week.
Speaking of Sean Vandermeulen, we're back with him, and sure enough, he's got the best fire suit that we've seen all season going on. I think this is going to become a bit of a thing for you, Sean. Maybe it's a good way to get yourself some screen time for sure, as he gets his way past Phil Manuel.
We heard last week that it was his standard racing attire, and I can assure you, as we do see a bit of an incident there. I didn't catch who it was, but there was a big old incident. But we have now jumped back to the battle for 18th between Pales and Whiting. They are going at it. They know that it's nearly the end of the race. They want to grab every single point that they possibly can. Whiting now manages to take the title line. We have quickly jumped to a bit of a replay here of Dave Coleman Right up the inside. I'm just not sure that, and I do apologise, I don't know who is
That's
in
Phil
the
Manuel.
other car.
Phil Manuel.
That is Phil Manuel.
In the Dentec entry there.
Yeah, and I just think that that's a case of not realising that there was a car beside him. Really hard to see out of these cars, and maybe just didn't realise the run that Dave Coleman had on him there, and unfortunately just moved across and bumped into it.
Not much in here. We see Vanderkraan still leading it out, just about to get to the line to start the final lap. They've got to make it through the hairpin one more time after this, but have a look at the battle in the background. Gamble and Walker gliding through these turns. Matt Vanderkraan looking far more composed than those two cars, so maybe just a few little differences in setup as what's keeping him in it. And you can see Walker's really struggling to get traction tonight, going sideways on just about every gear shift, and look at the gap that's opened up now to Gamble. Walker just cannot get it down. Whether it's those tyres just giving up at this point is hard to say. Ken Latta, Jamie Dyke, Ronan Campbell and Mark Poynton all in it for 4th place. So they're going to miss a podium at this stage, you'd think, but I tell you what, they're not letting the 4th place go easily.
Well, Ray Campbell around the
Big
outside.
into the wall.
I'll be interested to see, Jared, whether there was any contact there. That was a huge move from Rain to try and go around the outside. It'll be interesting to see on replay if we can do it, just how that transpired, maybe from above even, just to understand what room was given. As we do see here,
a little bit further back there. We'll jump ahead. Sorry, folks. Here we are as they come down the main straight. So keep your eye on Rain Campbell as he looks to go outside of Jamie Dyke into turn 1. Dyke stays inside to defend.
And really, what I'll say is if there was a touch there, nothing that Jamie Dyke could have done. Rain has gone around the outside there and turned in, and one of two things has happened, Jared. Either Rain has turned in a little bit too tight and just brushed the front of Jamie's car, or alternately, something that is so easy to do there, has just locked the rears and put it in the fence. But that does not take away from the fact that Matt Vanderkraan has driven nearly the perfect race, trundled around out the front. I use the word trundled reasonably impolitely. He has put together a fantastic race, leading home Scott Gamble and Wayne Walker, just 1.2 seconds separating your podium. Ken Latta in 4th, some 6 seconds back, leading home the battle pack of Dyke and Poynton. Rain Campbell recovers from that hit on the last lap to hold down 7th. Stuart Varga and Lorne McKee manage to round out the top 10. Fantastic race, Jared. Lots of action up and down the field. And something that I noticed was just how hard it is to pass here and really developing those quite large battle packs.
Absolutely. As we see, even right back here, the minor placings for 30th right now. We've got Nick Heusler, we've got James Hardy, and of course, David Logsdale all battling it out. Hardy's carrying a lot of damage, but he's still managed to look around the outside of Heusler. I reckon Logsdale's got to be feeling pretty safe here because the Angry Birds and Quantum entries look like they're about to wipe each other out, honestly. Let's get to the hairpin, see what happens here. Heusler up the inside, forces Hardy wide, shuts the door on him, and that might just be how they finish up as they head towards the line. Logsdale, Heusler, Hardy, rounding out 29th, 30th, and 31st there. What a way to finish it off.
Wow. Wow. I don't know what to say about racing like that for 30th. These guys, they want every single point that they can get.
Yeah, can't say I'm massively surprised to see that, honestly. It's pretty well what we've come to expect, of course, from ASR. They race for every position. Here we go. The results from Heat 1. Matt Vanderkraan takes the win ahead of Scott Gamble, then Wayne Walker and Ken Latta ahead of Dyke and Poynton. Rain Campbell finishing up in 7th after that unfortunate moment into the wall, turn 1 on the last lap. Michael Stewart and Stephen Varga finish ahead of Lorne McKee, rounding out your top 10. Luke Orman and Andrew Rushworth ahead of Miller and the Sipples. Then Chad Varga, Mick Clifton, Alistair Bales, Michael Whiting and Simon Farrington rounding out the 3. Rounding out the 20, I should say. But would you believe we're back talking to Matt Vanderkraan again. Matty, how are you, mate?
Good, mate. Hang on, I was going to turn off the iRacing chat.
Oh, you're right. I tell you what, that was a pretty comfortable drive for you from what we saw on this end. Certainly kept yourself well out of trouble there. How often were you looking in the mirror and seeing cars sideways behind you?
Every corner, I was shitting myself. That was insanely intense.
You looked really controlled from what I saw, Matt. We know that this is one of your preferred tracks. Was there any management going on tonight, or was it like a duck and a whole heap of paddling underwater and it just looked controlled on the surface?
Look, I was just basically trying to drive as fast as I could without making a mistake. I knew if I lit something up, this is an incredibly hard track to overtake, but you've got someone like Scotty or Wayne behind you. You do not need to make much of a mistake, and those boys will take advantage of it. So it was just, make sure those exits are good and be smooth, and I'd be all right. But yeah, man, I worked my butt off, and I'm absolutely stoked. I don't often get my name ahead of those couple of boys, so I'm very, very happy.
It's been a different start to the season to what we're used to for you. Is it just the level of competitiveness here increasing? Have you had a bit less time than usual for practice or anything like that? Are we expected to see a resurgent Matt Vanderkraan for the back end or for the rest of this season?
Yeah, look, Spa was all right. I had a P2 last week. Was a disaster. I went over the start-finish line with an off-track, so it ruined both laps. So I started from the back, and then auto-fuel underfueled me by 9 litres. So last week was just, an anomaly. I like to think, a top 5 for me is a good race. Anything above that, and I'm really, really happy. So, to be honest, I'm not sure I can do what I just did for 40 laps, but I'll give it a crack.
It's a long second race.
Not going to help that you're starting right off the front with so many people chasing as well here, Matty. I've got to ask, 2 compulsory pit stops over 40 laps, they're not really super necessary. What's it going to take to see a Vanderkraan special coming in on lap 1? Is it going to be an error in that first lap that forces you in early?
Yeah, mate, if I'm out front, I'm staying out front. Tell you one thing about Long Beach, there is one place you want to be going into turn 1, and that is P1. So Scotty and I both had great starts in that last race. I thought I nailed it, and he was gaining on me. So he's worked out his starts. Look, I don't think there'll be too much shenanigans in the pit strategy. We'll just see how it plays out. But if I'm out the front, I'm certainly not pitting.
What do you reckon you'll look like for tyre life over this, Matt? Do you try and break it into 3 even stints, or if you get an early safety car, do you take it?
No, I'll take it. The 16 laps in and the tyres are fine. I did drive very smoothly, which obviously helps, making sure I didn't light it up, but the tyres were fine at the end of that race still. So, if there's an early safety car, I'll be in.
My gut feel tells me that I think there'll be a train of cars joining you, but it's always interesting to get a bit of an insight into what we think is going to happen and how these drivers are going to go. I think that there's probably a pretty high percentage of an early safety car. It's one of those tracks. 40 laps is a long time, mate. Enjoy it. Keep your head down and see if you can manage to hit every single one of the apexes, because there's not much opportunity if you make a mistake.
No, appreciate it, boys. Yep, I'll be doing my best, and hopefully talk to you again, but we'll see what happens.
Best of luck to you, Matty. Vanderkraan taking out the win there in race number 1. We'll let him get back to the cockpit and get underway, because we are just about ready to start gridding for race number 2. 40 laps. Josh, I mean, it's only just over double what we've just seen. It'll be over before we know it, but the 2 compulsory pit stops, that could change everything here at Long Beach, because it is one of the longest and slowest pit lanes I reckon we've got on the calendar in quite some time.
Yeah, it is. At the end of the day, everyone has to drive down it twice. So it's a pretty even issue, but it is going to be an interesting strategy. I think that 1 stop is ample for 40 laps, and so really the strategy here is how do you get your second stop in impacting you the least possible.
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see how it all plays out, won't we? Vanderkraan and Gamble take the front row once again. Wayne Walker and Ken Latta behind them. Then Dyke and Poynton ahead of Campbell and Stewart. Stephen Varga and Lorne McKee rounding out your top 10 for race number 2, or your starting 10, I should say. They're not top just yet. They've got about 40 laps till they get to that. As we take a look further back, Luke Ullman and Andrew Rushworth line up alongside each other. Then Miller and Sipple and Vigar behind them. That'll be an interesting one, of course. Mick Clifton and Alistair Bales. Then Michael Whiting and Simon Farrington ahead of Sean Van der Meulen and Dean Logsdale. John Latham and Peter Sattler ahead of Damon Fisher and Phil Manuel. Then Craig Rose and David Logsdale ahead of Nick Heusler and James Hardy, with David Coleman, Brad Grant, Andrew Johnston, Todd Martin, Ashley Hall and Daniel Hall rounding out the 36 cars racing on track here this evening as we get ready to go down to the grid once again. And we will take a look at how they're lining up, because we should be underway in just a minute or two's time here, I reckon, Josh.
Yeah, it's going to come around quick. I've got to ask the question, Jared. If you were a betting man, what do you reckon the odds would be that you'd receive on a lap 1 safety car?
Well, I mean, this is the thing, right? We saw, if I'm not mistaken, last night's racing over on the Simple Racing Broadcast channel, we did see a lap 1, turn 1 incident in race number 1. And what we saw immediately after it as we got into race number 2 was a far more cautious and subdued approach from the drivers. Certainly picking up the pace very, very quickly, but everyone really keen to make it through the first, kind of couple of laps a fair bit safer than perhaps they had approached the start of the first race. I'm almost tempted to believe that outside of the first probably 4 or 5 cars here that have the prospect of an open bit of track in front of them, for everyone else in the mid-pack, I'd be looking at taking it pretty easy, I reckon. But we're about to find out, because the lights are up. Van der Kraan and Gamble on the front again, and we're away again. Van der Kraan and Gamble both getting a really, really solid start there. Jamie Dyke actually looking a little bit sluggish off the line, so he's going to have to be careful. His point looks to come around the outside as we come around and down the straight. Look at the pace on these Gen 3 supercars as we come down towards turn 1. They're still 3, 4, 5 wide. This is already looking dangerous as we get through turn 1. Somehow not a puff of smoke amongst it. Everyone keeps it on track, and we go down to the fountain. Look at them just settling in immediately. I hate to say I told you so, Josh, but I reckon that's the start that everyone had in mind. Just a little bit more comfortable. I've spoken too soon. Perhaps we've got a bit of hold up in the background, and sure enough, the fountain brings a few cars at the tail end undone. That's Brad Grant, who's ended up facing the wrong way through the garden. I'll have to have a chat to the groundskeeper about that, because he won't be impressed, I'm sure, as the rest of the field carries on. We'll go back and we'll take a look at what actually caused that one before we do get away. And sure enough, just a bit of contact there in the background. You can see a few of the quantum cars coming together. Everybody checks up on the way into the fountain. And unfortunately for Brad Grant, just a quantum car up the inside and just spins him around.
Yeah, so easy to do there. They were 3 wide going into the fountain, and the cars are so light in that part of the track that if you don't realise that there's a car inside, either left or right, depending on what part of the fountain you're at, the cars just trip over straight away, and they it's almost like you do a flick spin. No damage, but they just turn around so quick. How do I know? I happened to be the car in my last season of racing with my nose tucked up in behind the car in front, hardly a rub on them, and yet suddenly they were facing the wrong way, and I had a dirty great big 10-second penalty hanging over my head.
Well, it's not to say you didn't earn it, of course, but that is the nature of Long Beach, isn't it? You've got to be so careful as you get through there. Peter Sattler and Alistair Bales side by side into the fountain. Let's see how much room there is on the exit. Doesn't look like a great deal, but they've managed to get it sorted in the end. Tell you what, these guys are pushing hard. It's pretty unusual to see them trying to push side by side through the fountain, and it really just upsets your exit so much. The amount of pace that you lose by trying to argue over a couple of centimeters of space on the road. But lap 2 of 40 is that a little too soon to be thinking that aggressively?
Look, when I'm not in the car, absolutely, Jared. It just doesn't make sense.
But in the car, who cares about logic?
Look, in the car, you see, the thing is, Jared, is we've got all of these camera angles, and we come to it right when they're exiting the corner, and of course it doesn't make sense, and we don't have any adrenaline running. But these guys, the reality is that these guys are making split-second decisions, and they're making hundreds of them every lap, and it is so easy to sit here in the commentary booth and say, why would you fight on lap 2 of 40? Don't go side by side through the fountain, because it's going to compromise the rest of your lap. Blah blah blah. The reality is that sometimes in the car, Jared, you're making decisions, and you make one and all of a sudden you realise that you've found yourself in a position where your only option is to go side by side through the fountain because you've maybe braked a little bit too late, or you didn't realise that the car behind was going to attack you, and they have. So now you're stuck in a position where you're too wide, and suddenly you don't have many other options. I'm sure that even those guys, that's a blown engine, Jared. That is a car that has been in the fence hard, and that will be lucky to limp back to the pit wall.
Was that Brad Grant from Team AJR?
Or was it?
It looks like it might.
David.
No, I think that might actually be Grant, who's just limping around. We'll.
Oh no! This is so. For those who don't know,
have to wait for the pit entry on the right-hand side.
Dear. Oh, I shouldn't laugh. That is super disappointing and a really tough spot to be. Probably nothing that he could do there, but wow, what an unfortunate event.
This is really scary right now.
I'm much happier being here than in that car. But yeah, he'll get going any second now. He'll be a moving witch's hat for a couple of cars, and he will limp it in there behind the wall. For those who don't know, Long Beach, very, very tough pit lane to get the car into because there is no proper lane. It is just a break in a wall, and you have to manage to essentially do a chicane through it, and very easy to get it wrong and get caught up there. I have seen a number of accidents, Jared, caused by someone prepping to go into the pit lane and the cars behind thinking that they're going to get a run, and they do exactly this. They stick it down the inside, and the car on the outside goes to turn into pit lane, and you end up with a big accident.
As we go back a little bit further, and this I think is where it all came undone for Brad Grant. He's actually limped that car almost an entire lap around by the look of things into turn one. I'm expecting a lock of brakes and into the wall, but there's the smoke from the motor. Just a bit of damage done there as he hits the tyre barrier. That's a long way to drive that car back around.
He's done a great job to get it there, and a real shame, Jared, that he wasn't able to bail out of that and go to the right. We don't really pick it up on our cameras, but there's a beautiful big runoff to the right where you can go, and a nice big skid pan down there that you can go and do all pretty donuts while you work out how to face your car back the way that you want to face it. And of course you do all of that without any damage. So a genuine shame that we ended up with a broken car and not just one putting on a little smoke show for us while they turn around. However, we do jump
a smoke show of sorts, to be fair.
Well, not the one that we were hoping for, to be honest.
No, not quite.
But we do jump here and have a look at Wayne Walker. I do promise you folks, Wayne Walker is there in that shot. I know that it looks like a big black abyss, but all those funky lights on that steering wheel, they are being driven by the man himself. I promise you that. That's why they move. And he's doing a fantastic job in third spot. He knows that it's a long race, and he's really just chugging along at the moment, making sure that he stays in touch with Matt Vanderkram and Scotty Gamble, and is in position that once the pit stops are done, that he's fighting for the lead.
Yeah, and Wayne Walker will absolutely be there right throughout. If he can get traction here in race 2, we saw time and time again as he came out of that hairpin, the car going sideways through the first couple of gear changes. So whether that was just a case of the tyres giving up from having been overdriven a little bit through the midsection of that last race, we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, the tyre preservation here going to be very, very important. Even with 2 pit stops, you don't want to be spending too long in there if you can avoid it.
There's a couple of things that are interesting there, Jared. First of all, these cars have so much power that if you actually get them wheel spinning at the top of first and you pull second gear, they'll continue to wheel spin, and you've got to get out of the throttle and go again. And we saw Wayne struggling with that a lot on the exit of the hairpin. But secondly, these guys actually run a fixed setup, so it's provided to them by one of the drivers, and it is then used across the board. All of the drivers must run the same setup. One thing that I know, Jared, certainly from running supercars in my own team, we run wildly different setups driver to driver. I can certainly tell you last night, racing at Indy Road, we actually had setups who had entirely different philosophies. My teammate likes to turn the car on the brakes and they really do a lot of their turning on the way into the corner. I drive the car with the throttle, so I get it pulled up nice and straight and then steer it with the throttle. We had totally different philosophies last night, and I simply could not drive his car. It may just be that Wayne Walker doesn't quite agree with the setup, and whilst he's very, very fast on more traditional tracks, there may be something about his style that on this type of short, sharp, aggressive acceleration track where he's just using up more tyre or doesn't agree with the suspension as much as maybe he does on other tracks.
And look, probably something in that. I did manage to have just a brief chat with Stephen Varga from Quantum Racing before tonight's race. I just, popped into the channel and we were having a chat about what it was looking like, and he did mention that the setup, the brakes in particular, feel really, really touchy, and whether that's down to the really bumpy nature of Long Beach or some slightly different tweak in the setup, it's hard to say, but he was telling me that he just cannot find the speed because of the brakes. So whether that's upsetting the balance on the way into turns, and that's why we're seeing the wheel spin, because Walker's trying to just almost compensate for that on the way back out of the turn. I mean, there could be something to that, right?
Yeah, 100%. These cars are one of the only cars that I've found, if not the only car, that actually have brake master cylinder, where you can change the size of the cylinder, and you can very much affect how the car feels in its braking by changing that master cylinder size, and you can also change the size differently between the front and rear of the car. So, you can get a car that naturally produces a lot more front or rear brake, and in this setup there may be just a different a different philosophy than normal on the brakes due to it being a street circuit, and that may just be affecting a little bit how some of these guys react to the car, and maybe it doesn't quite feel how they're used to, and they're having to compensate for that in other ways, as you said, potentially Wayne Walker needing to compensate for a brake pedal that he doesn't particularly like by aggressively accelerating, and that's having an effect on his tyres.
Could be one of a number of things. Something I've just noticed, Wayne Walker jumping into the pits last lap. We've talked so many times before, Josh, about how strong the undercut or overcut can be at different tracks here with the Gen3 Supercars. Walker's gone in and done his first stop and has actually come out behind David Coleman, who pitted on lap 1. So David Coleman right now in an absolute box seat. He's up 12 spots from the start, and he is sitting at the lead of those drivers who have made their stop so far. It does look as though his stop on the first lap was legitimately one of his planned stops based on the time he spent in the lane and in the box. So that's really interesting to see. It's not surprising to see. We've seen it happen a number of times before, but it'll be one to keep an eye on as we see some of these front runners come in. Watch for Vanderkruijs and Gamble when they do make their first stop. Keep your eye on David Coleman, currently sitting in number 18th. Number 18th? What is that? Position 18. David Coleman from Fishy Motorsports. Just keep your eye on how he moves up that timing tower as the drivers come through to complete their pit stops ahead of him. God, I should take myself off the air for that one, Josh.
Yeah, it was a doozy. We won't deny it. What I will say is Dave Coleman actually spent longer in the pit lane than Wayne did. By pitting on lap 1, though, not only do you get potentially some help of the undercut, but not really a huge amount of tyre differential there. What you really get is just a fantastic opportunity to run in clear air, as we see Jamie Dyke having now. That's a lot of smoke at turn 1 by the look of it, Jared. I think that someone has had a big incident there, but I could be wrong. But we now see Jamie Dyke having the opportunity to run in clear air, and it'll be interesting to see how he goes.
There's David Logsdale on the way into turn 1, and that's it. A huge hit. Unsurprisingly, that car is absolutely toast. I don't know what's happened there, whether he's just forgotten that he's got a turn coming up. Let's go back and take another look at that, because I didn't see him slow down there at all.
I'm gonna say, I'm just watching. I'm going to say that was an intermittent hardware failure, and we actually see, I'm not sure who that is, but he dragged someone along. Ashley Hall got dragged along with him, so Ashley Hall, has been watching for the brake lights and trying to brake at the same time, I would suggest, and got dragged a little bit deep. But I think that Logsdale there has had that incident, which really did look like some sort of a hardware issue, given that he just didn't brake, and then didn't brake until very late. Looks like an intermittent issue.
Far too late, surely.
And then just disappeared. I think that he has had an issue, known that he wasn't going to be able to get back out on track without risking other people's races, and has simply called it quits for the night.
Have a look at the number of cars coming into the pits now. Matt Vanderkraan's gone in and has set off an absolute chain of drivers behind him, following him in for that first stop. This is going to be really interesting. Keep an eye on David Coleman, because this is Coleman here on your screen now. But he's going to come out ahead of most of these. Vanderkraan and Dyke are on their way out of the pits right now.
It's going to be interesting to see where he comes out. Of course, one of the things, he's got a pretty commanding lead as well. We will just have a bit of a look at Matt Vanderkraan and see what sort of time he spent in pit lane. So he spent nearly the same amount of time stopped as Dave Coleman did. So that appears to be a genuine gain for Dave, and really what that is just a beautiful clean run, driven all on his own for the first 10 laps, and has just made up a huge amount of time. And on a very personal note, Jared, fantastic to see Dave Coleman having a good run, because unfortunately last night he did trip over the front of one particular car that may have been driven by yours truly, and found himself in the wall in a pretty big way. So on a personal level, Dave and I had a bit of a run-in last night, and I accidentally ruined his race. So fantastic from my perspective to see him having a good result tonight.
You know what I find really interesting about his pit stop, and maybe this is down to having the clear air around him to make the decision, and of course assuming that our telemetry is accurate, because I'm finding this really hard to believe right now. Wayne Walker, Matt Vanderkraan, Jamie Dyke. Walker, 14.5 seconds in the box, 52 seconds in the pit lane. Matt Vanderkraan, just shy of 15 seconds in the box, 52 seconds in the pit lane. David Coleman, 16 seconds in the box, 42 seconds in the lane, 10 seconds quicker through the pit lane. How is that even possible?
No, that's not, and I assume that that's some sort of a telemetry issue on one or the other. One thing that I noticed, Jared, while you were reading through those stats, was an Accelerate Sim Racing car that went into turn one at an enormous pace. I'm not sure whether you've got something in your little book of tricks there that can
I've got
pick
some bad
that
news
out.
for you. This could be Wayne Walker.
Just wait and see. Oh dear. And this looks like there's going to be a locked brake. And Wayne has used that beautiful little skid pan that I talked about. So thankfully no damage. But unfortunately for Wayne, just trying to make up a bit of time.
Oh, that dear. Rejoin. And his mark pointing lucky there, Rain Campbell, giving him a bit of space.
I don't have my usual access into race comms tonight, Jared, as I am a little bit down on the technology that I normally use. I'll be interested to see. It would not surprise me at all to see some form of a penalty for a dangerous rejoin. I'm not sure on the exact rejoin rules here at ASR, but that was scary at best and dangerous at worst.
Yeah, probably not his proudest moment, but understandable that he wanted to get back out there and get into it. And look, good on the stewards for figuring this stuff out, right? I've done far worse than that, and I don't race it anywhere near the level that these guys do. So don't have such small gaps that I'm aiming for, and yet I've still managed to pull out in front of people that I should have seen coming a mile away. So, it's one of those things in racing.
It is, and the converse side of my comment is that it is so easy to do. You're watching so many things all at the same time, and you see a gap there that you think is big enough to get into, and then suddenly the car doesn't, quite react the way that you want it to, or it gets a little bit of wheel spin or anything like that, and suddenly you see it. The most important thing, Jared, is actually that everyone got through there okay. Rain Campbell's probably frustrated at being caught up behind Wayne Walker there, and probably lost 2 or 3 tenths blowing up so that he didn't have an accident, but certainly Mark Poynton got through without a scratch on the car, and at the end of the day, that's the important bit. Whether there's a small breach of the rules and there's a little penalty to come, I'm not 100% sure, but all's well that ends well in my perspective, and all of the cars are still racing.
For now at least. This little group running very quickly and very tightly packed. Poynton, Walker, Campbell, and just off the back is Michael Stewart. So really a compact little group as they try to hunt down Scott Gamble out in front, but still about 4.5 odd seconds from Poynton up to Gamble, so they've got some work to do to make that happen. David Coleman at the moment enjoying a reasonably healthy gap to his teammate Jamie Dyke, but it's coming down. What we do want to keep an eye on though is Vanderkraan and Ken Latta not too far behind either, so quite a few little battles going on around the place. Wayne Walker doing everything he can to catch Mark Poynton, and this is always of course the danger spot at the braking zone here of this back straight. Everyone just keeping it in line for the moment. Still 25 laps or thereabouts to go in this race 2 for the evening at Long Beach, and no one really wants to step so far out of line that they end up ruining their race with so much left in it. They're going to have to be content to sit in and wait for the mistake for the car ahead, just keep the pressure up, but not put their own race at risk at the same time.
I'll tell you, Jared, one thing I've just noticed, Jamie Dyke has pitted and is out in front of Matt Vanderkraan. There's something fishy going on here. Dave Coleman and Jamie Dyke both being able to get to the front after the first pit stop. Very interesting to see what's going to happen from here as we move towards our second pit stops.
Yeah, it's even Jamie Dyke, not significantly quicker in the same way that David Coleman was, but certainly quicker, 48 seconds end to end, with a 10-second stop in the box. So that would explain that difference. I'm really curious. I might actually do a little bit of digging here, Josh, and see if we can go back and take a look at Coleman's pit stop, because that is phenomenally quick. And there it is, in fact. I think David Coleman might have actually started from the pits, and that's why he's showing as having that pit stop on the very first lap. That could actually explain it. So
that is a wildly different scenario that we find ourselves in.
In which case, Jamie Dyke's done an amazing job of his pit stop, at least.
Yes, absolutely. If that is the case, and it would actually make a lot of sense. And the fact that we just see Dave Coleman there step out of the way and let Jamie Dyke come through really does indicate that they're not racing for position, and Dave Coleman knows that. And
Will he extend that to Matt Vanderkraan? That's the question.
Absolutely not. I don't expect that he will hold him up a huge amount, but as you can see off the totem pole, this is absolutely for position, and there is zero obligation for David Coleman to move out of the way of Matt Vanderkraan. There is a level of sportsmanship and gentlemanship that goes along with this. Obviously, this race with Matt Vanderkraan isn't what we would call a race for net position. So, we know now that Dave Coleman's got 2 pit stops still to do, etc. But the reality is that it's for position on track, and there's a level of appropriateness around it. It's probably not appropriate for Dave Coleman to battle too hard with Matt Vanderkraan, but there is certainly no obligation to simply sidestep down the straight and let him drive through.
Yeah, we won't see anything quite like this, I suspect, with Coleman, Vanderkraan, Gamble, and Ken Latta just going at it in the way up to the hairpin there, but Latta getting a much better drive from it. Here comes Scott Gamble though, plenty of pace down the front straight. It'll be a question of who gets on the brakes later. As it stands, Ken Latta showing off some really, really hot pace through the first couple of races here this season, and certainly backing it up here. It's going to come down to strategy, and it's still a long way to go, of course, before we wave that checkered flag, but we are almost halfway through, and Ladder sitting just outside the podium positions. And in fact, if you take David Coleman out of it, we've got to say Ken Ladder running third effectively at this point, which bodes very, very well for his finish.
Yeah, absolutely it does. And then you see, obviously, Scotty Gamble, who was in that front pack all of the last race. Wayne Walker has just dropped a couple of positions, but really not a huge drop for him considering the spin that he had, but still such a long, long way. And as you said, Ken Ladder has been putting together a really couple of good races to start this season. Will be a test though for anyone to keep it up. There is such a long way to go. Still 23
Coleman's
laps home here.
Coleman's in the pit. Sorry to cut you off, Josh, but there is the pit stop we were waiting for. So that'll be his first, I imagine, that will actually count towards the compulsory 2 that they do need to do this evening.
Yeah, that would make sense, and certainly, as we see a quantum car in the background, hard into the fence, just running a little bit too fast through the hairpin. But yes, it starts to make a bit more sense with how Dave Coleman has been able to do that. Still, no matter what, a fantastic drive to get to the front of the pack, and we'll see him benefit, no doubt, across this race. But maybe not quite the absolutely amazing drive all the way to the front that we had imagined we might see.
Nick Heusler having a little bit of a moment on lap 15 here. If they're already carrying a bit of damage to the front of the car, just can't quite get it pulled up and does even more damage. I do wonder if he's done that the lap before to cause that initial bit of damage, but yeah, not what he'd hoped for. And then lap 16, Craig Rose from Quantum as well, as we come down to turn 1. Turn 1's caught a few of them out tonight, and that's not surprising. It is a very, very high-speed entry, but there's the lock-up, and you can see him just sliding it all the way down. Manages to get it pulled up well in advance of that first tyre wall. Spins it around and gets underway again, but something we're going to see, I think, a fair bit more of tonight before we are done with the racing for this evening.
Yeah, and particularly as we go deep into this race, Jared, there's so much concentration required to get the car around this, a track like this. Unlike a lot of racetracks where you can, maybe cut a corner if you turn in too early, maybe, drift wide a little bit. That absolute concentration isn't quite as important here. You're brushing up, you're touching the mirror on concrete walls 2, 3, 4 times a lap. When we get, even the last 10 laps, those little errors are going to accelerate at a pretty rapid rate as people's mental fatigue really starts to set in.
Yeah, and it's hard to overstate just how surprisingly difficult these cars are to drive from a physical and mental perspective, even in a sim racing environment. Appreciating that it's nowhere near the level of effort that goes into driving a real Gen 3 supercar in real world conditions, but the amount of work that you do find yourself putting in, like I'm not running some of the gear that these guys are. A little 8 Newton meter Fanatec wheel is still enough for you to feel it after about 20-25 laps. You're starting to feel the shoulders just starting to tighten up a little bit, and you want to kind of relax and stretch out a bit and just kind of loosen up to get through the second half of the race. But you've got to really pick your moment for that. And while dealing with racing in tight packs like we're seeing here, Poynton, Walker, Campbell and Stewart all locked in really, really close together, the moment of just concentration lapse that can creep in there because you're not thinking about where you say stretch your shoulder out, or where you decide to take a look at one of your black boxes to set up for your next pit stop at just the wrong moment. You think you're on a different straight than you are, and all of a sudden you're having to think about your braking markers. It can really throw you off, as we see Ashley Hall parked up on the inside. Not a great night for him, unfortunately. A number of incidents for the privateer entry, and I'm starting to wonder if he's actually going to be able to get going again after that one.
Yeah, possibly a terrible night for Ashley, but still props on getting out there and turning laps. These are probably the hardest car, certainly the hardest touring car in iRacing to drive. This is one of the hardest tracks to drive them on, and yet he's out there, having a crack. So we certainly don't turn our nose up at it, Jared. He's doing a fantastic job, and the reality is that that there's a huge amount of skill that just goes into driving these things around this track, no matter how fast or slow it is. He hasn't had the best night, but it'll serve as a real lesson, a learning curve for him, and I'm sure that he'll be all the better for it, not only next week, but especially next season as we, get back somewhere like this.
Absolutely. Wayne Walker and Rain Campbell both in for their second stop. Rain Campbell makes the quickest stop and gets out ahead. So he's made that very, very quick. Cuts almost 4 seconds off the pit box time compared to Wayne Walker, and that's going to give him a nice little advantage as they get underway once again. Nice fresh tyres on there. He's going to want to get some temp into them fairly quickly. This pit exit, absolutely diabolical on cold tyres. It's such a hard turn to make while staying within the exit lines. And I'll tell you what, the surprise for me is that we haven't had more drivers penalised for cutting over that one.
Yeah, I think you only make that mistake a couple of times, Jared, and you suddenly realise where you need to be. I think that we would have seen that far more in practice earlier in the week. These guys have a pretty significant number of practice sessions up over the week, and I certainly know that when I first started racing at Long Beach, I made that mistake a number of times in quick succession, but I got used to it reasonably quickly. But you are right, it is one of the more difficult pit exits to get through.
Yeah, I've never enjoyed it, I'll be honest. It's everything about the pit here at Long Beach is just, it's really unusual, and it's really jarring when you're so used to having, most tracks have a really clearly defined pit entry, a really clearly defined and obvious exit flow to them. And Long Beach, they've just, decided not to put a couple of the concrete barriers in. That's your entry. And the exit is drive alongside the wall until you can see down the inside of the first turn, and then you're allowed to come across. It's a very, very different experience from just about any other track I can think of.
Fitting in with the theme of American street circuits, I encourage you to go and enjoy a couple of laps of the Chicago street circuit.
I'll be honest, I actually like Chicago more, because at least, if I recall correctly, the pit exit is basically at the turn point. So it is still a tight turn, but you're not thinking about, okay, where's my blue cone before I'm allowed to turn. If memory serves, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm reasonably certain that it's more wall to the end than Long Beach is, and I'm pretty well guided by walls, I must say.
It is, you're right, it is more wall to the end, but it is a far tighter turn, and of course the entry is probably even harder to get into than the one here at Long Beach.
Yeah, can't argue with that one, mate. I don't know, something about Long Beach and the tight turns required, I've always found them definitely one of the more challenging parts of street circuit racing. The hairpin here, the pit entry, the pit exit. The problem you've got at Long Beach, of course, or maybe it's just the problem I've got, to be fair, is because it is such a long and, as a result, incredibly high-speed straight, small errors in those particular sections are magnified so drastically by the time you reach turn one that you're not talking about, okay, it might cost me a couple of tenths if I stuff up this pit entry, or if I'm a little bit slow through the hairpin. You're talking about potentially almost a full second from end to end, as we see David Coleman sliding it out of the corner, trying to put a bit more distance between himself and Daniel Hall behind him.
I think you're right, Jared. I'll bring it back to a comment you were making not that long ago about not understating the physical effort that the guys go to tonight, and acknowledging that sim racing isn't driving a real car. Our drivers aren't subjected to G-forces. They're not subjected to the same heat, although I have seen some people on some forums asking how they can go about replicating race car heat in their sim. I encourage you, if you are a sim racer and you're thinking about that, don't. Race car heat sucks. But what I would say is these cars are really quite similar to their real life counterparts in how they move around and how, you know, the process that they're required to break them and turn them and all of those things. And what that means is that the mental aptitude to drive these in the sim is quite often nearly identical to the mental aptitude to drive them in real life. And the reality is, as we do see the safety car sent out, so I'm just going to finish this point and then we'll go and work out why. The reality is that no matter whether your arms and legs are tired or feeling good, Jared, these cars drain your brain. There is no other way to describe it. 40 laps around here takes a certain level of mental capacity and mental commitment to get through, and it is so tough to do, and there will be plenty of people who really start to struggle, and they're going to be good for 20, 25, 30 laps, and then just suddenly they're just going to fall off a cliff, and that's where those errors really start to accelerate.
Absolutely, they do. I'm just trying to figure out who on earth.
There's someone facing backwards on the back straight.
Chad Vigar or Sean Vandermeulen, perhaps, that's had the issue there. We'll just take a quick look at a couple of incidents and see whether they have been related. Chad Vigar's had a bit of a moment, very close to the wall there, perhaps just not quite getting it done. Oh, he's come around the corner, and there's Sean Vandermeulen. T-boned him. Just not looking ahead, caught in the shadow there, perhaps. So the initial incident, Sean Vandermeulen coming into that turn, has got it all sorts of wrong. Well, actually, no, cops just a bit of a nudge there from that'd be Phil Manuel, I believe. And then look at you can see from here how blind that corner is. He's got absolutely no way to spin around, waiting for the Angry Birds car to clear him. That's Chad Vigar.
A hit like that, Jared, flush in the right-hand wheel, I wouldn't be surprised if that is a broken drive shaft and that car doesn't have any drive at all.
Yeah, the amount of punishment that these cars can take as they nudge each other, let's say, around the track, it's amazing how much of that they can actually tolerate, and yet sometimes just the right hit in the right spot and it completely disables them. They are absolutely made for rubbing panels, but they do not like direct impacts, that's for sure.
No, they are built with a specific type of racing in mind, and that is a panel rubbing, curb hopping style of racing, and they're very good at it. They are not great at being punted nose first into a wall, for instance, and I think that comes down to, if we look at the real world application of these cars are driven by highly professional touring car drivers. These are regarded as one of the premier touring car series in the world. They're not expected to be crashed, is the simple answer. So these drivers are very skilled at rubbing the cars together, pushing on each other, leaning on cars in a way that amplifies the racing but doesn't cause a crash. And what that means is that when there is that front-on impact, or side-on impact, they do break very easily, because that's not what they're designed to be. These aren't production-based cars that are, designed to be, bumped into a million parking lot bollards or anything like that.
Now, this might end up being a little bit contentious here, Josh. Michael Stewart right now at the head of the safety car line, but Ken Latta is actually our current race leader and is almost a full lap up. There's going to have to be a lot of wave by here to reset the order properly.
Yeah, so this is a reasonably usual tactic, Jared, and I would suggest that what's happened is this was deemed a safety critical incident, and this is actually something that we do in real life racing as well. For times where there is a real safety implication and a stranded car on that corner would be considered, something that you want to neutralise the field as fast as possible to limit the number of times that people pass them at speed. You just grab whatever car is next. And then once the field is neutralised, you do exactly what we're seeing here. You let all of those back marker cars past until the true leader catches up, and then you will see them transit around behind the safety car for long enough that all of those cars that have been waved by catch up to the back of the train, and order is resumed.
And we'll see that happen here. We're keeping our eyes on Ken Latta and Scott Gamble. About the slowest entry into turn one that we're going to see here tonight, I reckon, which is fair enough. We've just received word that race control have towed Sean van der Meulen from the track, so that's been cleared. But I suspect we might end up with another lap yet under safety car while this order gets sorted out again.
Yeah, I think so. And if we go back to that incident, Jared, between van der Meulen and Chad Weiger, a really unfortunate incident. Van der Meulen doing everything that he could to remove himself from the racing line. And I think what's happened there is Chad Weiger's come around the corner, seen van der Meulen sitting in the middle of the road, and made the decision to go right and go around the back of the car. Potentially a bit of a learning here for Chad, that the safest place always is the racing line. And you see there, he's come around the corner and made that decision to go hard right. He'll take note of that and learn from it. It's such a disappointing crash, and certainly not his fault, but just one of those things where you're only involved in these sorts of accidents once or twice, and you realise that just staying on the racing line is always going to be the safest place in an event like that, because no one, having been involved in a crash like that, is going to make the decision to drive into the racing line.
We see a few different angles of that one. Yeah, I think you're spot on. The other difficult thing, I'm sure, and won't contribute in a massive way compared to, again, probably real world racing, but really unfortunate that van der Meulen was sitting just within the shadow of that bridge, which made him just that little bit harder to see. And I don't know that Weiger really knew what was happening there. No braking effort whatsoever. It's one of those things that happens in racing. And
and it's
what do you do?
It's one of those things, Jared, where I made a comment a few laps ago about the number of split second decisions that these guys make every single lap, and I'm very conscious of the fact that I sit there and I say, Chad will learn from this, and maybe next time he'll stay on the racing line. The reality is that happened from the moment that he saw van der Meulen until the moment that he had to make the decision on whether he would go left or right was, probably 2.5, maybe 0.3 of a second to make that decision. And from the moment that he made that decision, he was committed. Certainly not looking to lay any blame with him, or even say that I could have or would have done anything different. It's very easy for me to sit here in this beautiful air-conditioned ivory tower and make remarks on what drivers could have done differently. That is just a racing incident. They happen every day, but hopefully for Chad's future races that the natural instinct becomes to stay to the racing line, because for his sake, we'd love to see him continuing around and not being caught up in those really unfortunate incidents.
Yeah, not what you want to see for any driver. The 24/7 Sim Services safety car leading the pack right now. Ken Latta is back in the appropriate position here, tucked up in the lead spot. And certainly for Latta, for Gamble, for Matt Vander Kraan, for Jamie Dyke, the timing of their pit stops could not have been better to find themselves in this position. A little surprised, though, actually, to see that Rain Campbell and Wayne Walker didn't benefit more. They both came in on lap 20, just a few laps ahead of the safety car being called, and I'm sure they were hoping that they were going to end up just a little further up than they are right now, 5th and 6th currently. But unfortunately for them, Ladder, Gamble, Van der Kroon and Jamie Dyke all getting in and out of the pits fairly quickly this time around. And it's made the difference for them.
One of the potential problems for Ryan Campbell and Wayne Walker, once that safety car's called, Jared, obviously you can't pass anybody. And if you do happen to get caught behind drivers who decide to back right off or anything like that, you are at their mercy, and you just have to follow them at the pace they're doing. All the guys at the front kitted right as the safety car was called, and what that meant is that they were able to get in, get out. No one got past them, and they held their position until they rejoined or caught up to the safety car. The one that I note, Dave Coleman up 23 positions. So obviously we saw him drive all the way to the front. He completed that first stop, which put him a little bit back in the pack, but he managed to snag the same opportunity, Jared, and got that pit done right as the safety car was called. Found himself in a fantastic position within the train, and he now is on fresh tyres and fuel home as the same as all the people around him. It's not even like he's got here on a wild strategy whereby he's on very old tyres or anything like that. The reality is that he's tired and fueled and ready to race, and genuinely in 8th place. He's been lucky with a bit of strategy, but has found himself in a fantastic position.
The thing that really worries me at this point, Josh, we're on lap 29 now. We've been under safety car for probably the better part of 5 or 6 laps. We are absolutely at the race distance now where it is going to be a flat-out sprint the minute that safety car disappears from the track. And these drivers are going to have to be really, really careful not to invoke another safety car as they get underway again. It'll be interesting to see who decides to push immediately and who just takes a lap or two to let the tyres come up a little bit further in temperature, because the weather right now, it's not terrible. The track temp's 34 degrees, so it's not super hot, but the tyres will definitely be outside of their optimal operating range right now. Not a lot of room or time to get much of a weave on here in Long Beach. So, these drivers, maybe a bit of brake dragging to keep the internal temps up if they can. But yeah, they're all going to be suffering a little bit, and perhaps even more so for those drivers who did pit under safety car. Maybe they're going to be at a disadvantage to the likes of Campbell and Walker, who have at least a bit more residual heat in the tyres as they come around to prepare to get underway again.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. These cars actually react quite well to cold tyres. You can lean on them more than you might expect, and I think that's because the tyres on these cars are so soft. They go from working really, really well to working really poorly in only a couple of laps. So I think that these guys are very deliberately not weaving or anything like that. They're, like you said, the track's 34 degrees. The tyres aren't going to be stone cold. And these guys are really looking to keep those temps nice and low, keep the tyres fresh. The last thing they want to do is rip all of that nice rubber off, weaving backwards and forwards, and they are going to be looking to go absolutely flat out as soon as they can. And like you said, we're looking 10 to go this time around. Hopefully the safety car's in this lap and a 10-lap sprint home. I certainly don't want to insinuate that I like seeing incidents, but if you're going to have one, how good is a 10-lap sprint home?
Yeah, look, I can't argue with it. It's always good fun for us, at least.
Now, we do see now Vygar's in the pit lane, so the safety car has pulled away. I think that we should stay on board here, Jared, and get to see the carnage that happens, although Ryan Campbell in front has left Wayne Walker absolutely for dead. We can see there the gap that he has been able to pull, and Wayne Walker now working hard to get this car with cold tyres around that front straight bend, and now the big brake application into turn one. Everything appears to be cool, calm and collected a bit of a shame that we didn't see more of a battle to start this race, but certainly the first 6, as far as we can see, all nicely in a line. Scotty Gamble, though, he did put it in the fence on the way out of turn 5. Hasn't done any damage, I don't think, but certainly let Jamie Dyke dive straight through. So we currently do have a Fishy Motorsport 1-3. And it's going to be interesting to see how the guys go from there. Wayne Walker has ranked right up on the back of Rain Campbell, and he is now all over him. Although there's that oversteer, Jared. We just continue to see it. There is something going on in this setup that Wayne Walker doesn't necessarily agree with. Maybe it's just a little bit of impatience, but he is certainly struggling more than usual to get the power to the ground.
Absolutely, and look, just unfortunate for him that he's having to fight it back because he did get caught out. Ken Latta made the jump fairly early after the safety car came in, and Walker was still, on the slow exit from the hairpin as the 5 cars ahead pulled away, and that's really what's caught him out and left him, just with a bit of work to do now as we come on down to the first turn once again. And just so much of the field spaced out. You can see the difference between this safety car period and that we saw in the first race, where I think it was Vanderkam or Walker that actually took them all the way to the start-finish line before jumping on the loud pedal. The early jump from Latta has just created some huge holes in this field and really spaced them out very, very quickly. Because it's just a matter of that hairpin slowing down everyone who's still stuck in it, while the field ahead has the opportunity to pull away.
Yeah, absolutely, Jared. I made the comment in the first race that if it was me out the front, I would be getting on the loud pedal as early as I possibly could for that exact reason. You're accelerating away at full throttle while other people are still, braking and checking up and trying to work out how to get through that hairpin. The last thing that you want, in my opinion, is to let the field bunch back up on the front straight and wait for you. You want to be gone as early as possible. And really, I think that Cam...
Sounds like we've just lost Josh Harris there for a moment. Hopefully we get him back in a
second.
There he is, back with us.
The joys of hotspot in regional New South Wales towns, mate. I do apologise. I was just saying Ken Latta out to a 1.4 second gap already. He has done a fantastic job.
Absolutely has, and Vanderkran at the moment doesn't seem to have any answers. That said, it could just be a case of getting those tyres up to temp before he starts to really attempt the push at this stage. Troy Sipple's had a big one in the background by the look of things, and does look as though he's had to get back into the pits. We'll see if we can take a quick look at what happened here. And into turn 1, unsurprisingly, turn 1 catching out again. Big contact with the wall, absolutely broken suspension in the front end. And I don't think he's going to be able to get that back, so he's had to have that towed. Just turn 1 every time at Long Beach comes up with the goods for us.
Yeah, look, that's an unfortunate reality of places that Mustangs should be.
Jamie Dyke and Matt Vanderkant just can't be separated at the moment as they make their way down the front straight. We've got a few battles going on further back through the pack though as well that we'd like to make sure we catch a little bit of. Peter Sattler has Daniel Hall and John Latham travelling along with him at the moment in this battle for 20th. Sattler with just a bit more space, but you can see the amount of damage that some of these cars are carrying just from those light repeated impacts as they search for every inch, every centimetre, every millimetre, in fact, of track space that they can use here before they do come into contact with walls. Unfortunately, the only real way to feel that out is by nudging a couple of them along the way. And certainly Sattler and Hall looking like they've done plenty of that so far in this race. Matt Vanderkant now under some pretty serious pressure from Jamie Dyke, who's closed it right up to within 3/10 as we make their way down the back straight. This is going to be a real opportunity for Jamie Dyke to perhaps get a move on, and we'll jump on board with him and just see if he does have what it takes, or if he's setting up for a turn 1 pass here as we get around to start lap 34 of 40, coming very, very quickly towards the end of this race. Vanderkant hard on the brakes, gets it pulled up. Jamie Dyke losing a bit of time there, and he does have Scott Gamble and Rain Campbell right on his tail.
Yeah, we see there Jamie Dyke just making a bit of a mistake through the hairpin. It has probably checked up the cars behind him as well, but he has gone from being all over Matt Vanderkram to losing the better part of a second on the way into turn one. So he'll work to scramble that back, but so easy to make such a small mistake, and he just didn't realise how much Matt Vanderkram was going to slow up through the hairpin. Had to take a slightly different line, and that's the result.
Yeah, it's funny how quickly the tides change in motor racing. You know, you've got a battle going on between two drivers, and all it takes is the slightest mistake, and it doesn't. It's like the traffic snakes you see on the motorways, right? Someone brakes a little bit too much on the merge, and someone next to them brakes a little bit too much, and all of a sudden, from that moment of slowing down more than they need to, there's this train of cars that just appears, and it's almost what you see here in racing, the same kind of concept, just a little bit slower from Jamie Dyke, and all of a sudden the battle that he's having forward with Matt Vanderkram opens right up, and instead he creates a train behind him of 4 or 5 cars that he now has to manage and be aware of defending these turns as he comes through the start lap 35. And it changes so very quickly, and it's great fun to watch. But I tell you what, sitting in the cockpit, it can be a little bit much at times, particularly when you're getting to the very, very pointy end of what has been a reasonably long and difficult race for these drivers.
It takes a huge amount of mental fortitude to be able to deal with those things, not become dejected or frustrated and really throw the towel in. Being able to accept what's happened and immediately move on is really important part of racing. And we see it here. Jamie Dyke has immediately, he's fallen off the back of Matt Vanderkram, and he hasn't overdriven the car trying to catch back up or made any further silly mistakes. He's just settled back into his business and making sure that he drives as fast as he can. And if he's fast enough, he'll catch back up, and if he's not, he won't. And there's no point in really trying to do anything outside of drive the car as well as you possibly can. We see another Quantum car that's probably still was it Todd Moulton?
Craig Rose just had an issue.
Sure.
Yeah, well back, but he's had a couple of moments over the last couple of laps, so struggling his way along.
Yeah, we see now Rain Campbell has an opportunity here, so he's right on the very back of Scott Gamble, and straight away that's just given a little bit of a reprieve to Jamie Dyke. So we talk about those battles moving forwards and backwards, but we continue to see just how hard it is to pass here. And Rain Campbell was all over the back of Scotty Gamble the whole way down the front straight and just couldn't make a move out of it.
Yeah, it makes a big difference if you do get an opportunity. And really, Long Beach, what I'm just picking up here, we've seen, and it's only a couple of races into the season, let's be clear, so maybe I'm getting a little ahead of myself, but the gaps that we're seeing at the front end of the field have been equalised so heavily. Sure, we've had a couple of safety cars play into it, but even after a number of clean laps, there just hasn't been the 7, the 8 second gaps that we have been seeing so far in this series. And it really makes you wonder just how much street circuits are going to be a massive equaliser when they do come around this season. Because the running order right now, completely different to what I would have predicted based on performances so far this season.
I agree. It's a different order to what we're used to. And you're right, street circuits are a huge equaliser, not only in the sense of some people like them and some people don't, but small mistakes have huge consequences. It's so easy to make such a little mistake and find yourself lose 3, 4, 5 positions. So I'm not 100% sure what street circuits we've got for the rest of this year, but they are always an opportunity for different things to happen.
Yeah, we do like to mix it up a little bit. Look, not a huge number. In fact, not really any street circuits left to go from here. We've got Portland International next round, which will be very interesting to see these cars get around. Then Road America, Hockenheim Ring, We go to Jerez after that. Then we go to the Bend for round 8, Misano and Okayama. So, look, it's probably to the relief of some of our championship contenders that they're not going to see more street circuits, and they're going to have a bit more of an opportunity to exert their dominance over the racing so far. Yeah, it's going to be interesting to watch. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, it is, and lots of different tracks there with different personalities, should I say. You know, there's still a lot of variety coming this season, which is fantastic. But importantly, there's still 3 laps tonight of an incredibly difficult circuit with lots of well, actually I shouldn't say lots of battle packs. There is plenty of spread across the field, but there is this one battle pack, particularly for 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th. There is a 4-car train here that is really forming up, and Jamie Dyke is under all sorts of pressure. There is no doubt about that. He's got his work cut out of him to get this Fishy Motorsport car home in 3rd place tonight, Jared.
Doing a great job of it. We know Jamie Dyke's absolutely able to defend. The question is, we haven't really seen Gamble, Campbell, or Walker needing to attack as hard as they need to right now. We're down to the last 3 laps of this second race, and Jamie Dyke looking reasonably comfortable at this stage. He's not able to close the gap to Matt Vanderkraan ahead, so perhaps a little resigned to 3rd place here as Vanderkraan starts to slowly reel in Ken Ladder out in front. But Jamie Dyke, probably in the right position here. There's not a lot of work you need to do to cut off the lines for drivers trying to pass here at Long Beach. So it's going to be a little easier for him to perhaps control this. This is key though, the exit out of the hairpin. If he gets that wrong, that's what's going to cost him that place. He needs to nail that the remaining 2 times that he's got to go through it, or he's likely to lose 3rd. That will be the absolute key to him maintaining that position.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And there's just a hint, it looks to me like just a hint of understeer coming into that car through that final hairpin, so that's presenting him with a bit of a challenge. But once he gets into this glowing section, as long as he hits his marks, he should hold his position. Very frustrating for the 3 cars behind who just want to get a wriggle on, and potentially all faster than him, all being held up. But we've talked about it all night, just not able to find a way past, and it's really brewing up into a fantastic battle. And these battles on street circuits, in my opinion, are one of the things that makes supercars racing so good. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun to race people, but importantly, it's a lot of fun to be able to defend. Racing's not anywhere near as much fun, in my opinion, Jared, when it's only passing. The need to construct a pass and be really sensible and patient, as we see here. Scotty Campbell makes the dive inside. That is
Rain
a
Campbell
huge
alongside
move.
3 wide down the straight. Jamie Dyke gets the drive. I think Gamble might have even just given him that back a little. Oh, that's one worth looking at again.
That was a huge move down the inside. It was absolutely fantastic, and shows the quality of driver that Jamie Dyke is. Oh no, as we see Scotty Gamble sideways into the fence, the exact same thing that we saw with Rain Campbell in the first race, as these guys continue to be side by side. This is huge stakes at the moment with a potentially wounded car for Scott Gamble. Rain Campbell now in the fence, which brings Wayne Walker into it. We also see Poynton, Coleman and Stewart and Allman all involved in this. These guys have lost a huge amount of time. They've lost 4 seconds to Dyke, and then there's a further, 3.5 seconds to Dyke.
This is the final lap. This is the final half of the final lap here as well, Josh. It's worth pointing out. Jamie Dyke looking very comfortable. Our podium here as well as sorted, and he's probably cheering in that cockpit right now. But this red mist, you could see it from Rain Campbell. He's been nudging the back of Scott Gamble all the way around this lap. This hairpin, this is going to be really, really interesting to see what happens as they come to the hairpin for one last time. Does Campbell go for a dive, or does Gamble cut him off? And as it stands, Ken Ladder comes across for his win. Matt Vanderkraan, Jamie Dyke gets 3rd. And at the line, no change in that order, but only because I think cooler heads perhaps prevailed there, and they realised that it wouldn't be worth perhaps incurring the wrath of the stewards there, because it was certainly threatening to come a bit undone there, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was, and really interesting to see Scotty Gamble be able to complete that lap with that car, considering the amount of damage that it looked like he sustained in turn one on that final lap. But fantastic to see, and what a way to finish that race. As fun as it was to call that, Jared, and as much emphasis as we put on it, what a drive out the front from Ken Latta. He, from that safety car onwards, he absolutely owned that racetrack. There was just never any doubt about it. He was cool, calm and collected and just drove away from the front of the field.
Yeah, it's what you love to see, isn't it? And it's not something we've seen from Latta. I think that'll be his first win for the season, unless I'm forgetting something along the way. He's certainly been up amongst it, but really interested to see what this might mean for his positioning in the championship, because a few of those top contenders actually dropping quite a few points here in race 2. Gamble, Campbell, Walker, all further back. David Coleman finishing in 8th, which is no mean feat either, up 23 positions this evening. So a huge effort there. But the night certainly belongs to Ken Latta, and a very, very well-deserved result for him. Speaking of results, let's take a look at how it has wrapped up here in race number 2. And Ken Latta takes the win and the points ahead of Matt Vanderkraan. Jamie Dyke bringing a third-place fishy result through the gate as well. Then Scott Gamble, Rain Campbell, Wayne Walker ahead of Mark Point and David Coleman and Michael Stewart. Luke Orman rounds out the top 10. Stephen Varga finishing in 11th ahead of Lorne McKee, then Whiting, Rushworth and Clifton ahead of Damon Fisher. Simon Farrington and Dean Logsdale behind them, and then John Latham and Daniel Hall round out your top 20. Oh, what a finish, Josh.
Absolutely, Jared. That was a fantastic race, and that race had a little bit of everything. We settled into it nice and early with lots of strategy, and how do we get to our 2 pit stops, and will we see an early safety car? We saw some really calm heads prevail at the start of that race. Some nice quality racing where people were working together. We got into that middle section, a bit of jeopardy thrown in, cars everywhere with pit stops and stuff, and then a 10-lap sprint to end with a 4-car battle that just went the whole 10 laps. You probably couldn't ask for more if you wanted to write down if this was all production based as opposed to live sport, and you wrote out a storyboard. And said, righto, what do we want to achieve out of tonight? I think that we got it.
Yeah, I reckon so. And someone who got certainly well and truly more than they were perhaps bargaining for in those last couple of laps is none other than Jamie Dyke. Jamie, welcome back to the booth, mate. We thought you were going to be under a huge amount of pressure there, but in the end, getting just a little bit of breathing room.
Yeah, just a little bit. I saw the torpedo coming from behind and thought I'll get around turn 1 before that happens.
That was a huge move from Scotty Gamble into the hairpin there on the end of the second last lap. Jared raised the question, and certainly not something we could tell from the footage. Did Scotty Gamble get out of it and give you that back, or did you just get a better run out of that hairpin after he did dive down the inside?
I'm not quite sure. He might have. But every time he kind of stuck the nose in on the inside, on the outside, I was getting better runs anyway. So I wasn't quite sure. I know that he wasn't that far enough up, and I kind of turned in, like expecting the contact, because he wasn't far enough up. But yeah, I don't know. He might have, and if he did, thank you. But I don't know, mate.
It's a pretty exciting way to end the race from our perspective. Up until that exit of turn 1, where you suddenly had a few seconds up your sleeve, there was 4 cars breathing down your neck for that whole 10-lap run. How much were you sweating, or were you just in conservation mode, knowing that you could hold them behind you?
A little bit of both. Again, I was sweating. It's definitely hard to keep this thing, straight. To be honest, I didn't really save. I pushed and pushed and pushed, and I don't know if you got caught, but the lap the safety car was called, I actually had a half spin and let Van der Kraan and Kenny pass.
No, we missed that. There you go.
It was I think third turn after the fountain. So you got a right, and then a left. Around that left-hander, I almost looped it.
Well, probably a good result then for having what was an almost spin. A fishy 1-3 must have been pretty cool in the VC, and then Dave Coleman up 23 spots into 8. So a pretty good night for the team as well as you personally, mate.
Yeah, it was a mixed board, I'd say. Coleman got really lucky with the safety car and how it all went down, and then some other teammates, got bent over from it. So it was kind of the luck of the draw, but me and Kenny were lucky enough to be at the front and could kind of pick what we were going to do.
Well, mate, it's good to see. Congratulations on another fantastic result. It's certainly not going to be a bad thing for your championship. We'll let you get back to the team and celebrate, but congratulations on getting around this place 56 times, I think it was, without much of an incident.
Yeah, thanks, mate. I half expected it was going to be a drop round, but I'll take a P6 and a P3.
Thank you. Well done, Jamie, and hopefully we get to chat to you again sometime soon, hey?
Have a good night, boys.
Jamie Dyke there, taking out P3 in the end for race 2. We jump now to second place, and we welcome back to the booth none other than Matt Van der Kraan. Matt, not a bad little result for you for this evening.
Yeah, look, not bad. A little frustrating. A good driver would have won that race if they were me. I made a few just little errors. Had a horrific in-lap on that second safety car. Mate, but I'm not complaining. It was a hell of a lot of fun, and Ken just took off like a scalded cat after that second safety car, and I was like, wow, would you mind slowing down, dude?
Yeah, he certainly had some pace tonight, and it's something we've been seeing just hints of throughout the season so far, but street circuits maybe a little bit more his jam, hey?
Oh, don't worry, mate. Every circuit's Kenny's jam. He's one quick dude.
I'm interested to know, Matt, how quickly after that safety restart did you realise that Kenny was gone and turn your attention to Jamie Dyke? Because until Jamie made a little bit of a mistake out of the hairpin there, it was looking like shaping up to be a pretty mighty battle between you two.
Yeah, I was really impressed with Jamie's pace. I knew they were both using up a lot of tyre. And I wasn't. So I thought, I might be a chance. And I started gaining the 10th or 2 on Ken a lap, but it was never going to be enough. And then, in the last lap, I didn't gain anything. And, Jamie had me nervous, 100%.
Well, good to see the rivalries continuing, mate. A really stellar set of results for you tonight. I'm keen to take a look at the provisional championship standings once we've wrapped up here. But for you, probably almost the very best results you could have hoped for. Congratulations, a solid drive right throughout, and hopefully not the last time we get to speak to you this season.
Yeah, appreciate it, boys. I hope to speak to you again. No guarantees, but I'll be doing my best to jump back in this booth.
No pressure, mate. No pressure. Looking forward to it. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Matt Van der Kraan takes out P2 in race number 2, and a very, very impressive result indeed for him tonight. We go, of course, now to our winning driver, and we will see if we can get Ken Ladder into the booth. If you bear with us for just a moment, folks. Ken, do we have you with us?
Yes, you do.
Mate, what a phenomenal second race for you. Congratulations on the win, first of all. The pace tonight that we've seen from you, it's something you've been almost waving under our noses here in the commentary booth for the first couple of rounds, but tonight you've just been, I don't know, just set free a little bit by the walls of Long Beach. A street circuit's very much your preferred environment here, or what's the go?
we did pretty well around these type of circuits. Obviously, in that first heat, I suffered a bit of damage with the failure of one of the lads into turn one, and the car seemed fine for about 5 laps, and then it was just washed out the front. I felt like I had nothing, and then fortunately enough, Jamie was there to sort of protect my spot there, which sort of set me up for the next race. But yeah, definitely, I think I've found something in the second race, which helped me keep the tyres together, keep the pace up, and particularly when the tyres were coming off. And that definitely showed, I think, tonight.
And we were just having a chat to Matt Vanderkraan, and he said that certainly from the safety car restart, you just absolutely vanished. We could see that from our perspective. We spent a huge amount of time focused on the battle for third, which raged the entire time that you were out the front doing your thing. Were you pushing particularly hard? Were you using a lot of tyre to get away from the pack, or did you just really gel with the car and the setup, and you were just driving your own race and it just happened to be faster than everyone?
I think, just obviously aggressive off the start, got the jump, was able to pull a second and a half in about 2 or 3 laps, something like that. And then once I sort of got that gap, I just started settling down a little bit, and just to bring the car home, but obviously just trying to keep a good consistent pace to the end, and so I felt safe.
Well, mate, a good consistent pace was absolutely rocket fast, so it's pretty special to see, and I think that you will have just put your name up in lights for the next couple of rounds at the very least. There'll be some people paying attention when they see you around them on track. You've done a fantastic job. Next week, I think we're off to Portland International, which is not exactly the same sort of circuit. So, are we going to see another good week from you there? Is that somewhere that you're keen to get to?
I honestly can't picture the track at the moment, but I'll probably get there and go, oh yeah, I've been here before. But always trying to put a certain amount of effort in to make sure that I'm somewhat competitive. So I'm certainly going to be doing my best to be up the front on the podium, or if not win it again, which would be awesome.
Somewhat competitive is certainly the understatement of the night, mate. A fantastic drive there in race 2. Congratulations on the points. And looking forward to the opportunity to welcome you back to the booth again with some more results later in this season. Congrats again, though. We'll let you get back to the team.
All right, cheers, guys. Thank you very much, and I'll catch you next time.
Ken Latta from Fishy Motorsports taking out the win in race number 2 here tonight. And Josh, a really just a stellar race from Ken. Once he got out in front, there was really no stopping him, was there?
No, absolutely not. That was a clean pair of heels that he showed. I don't have all of the data available to me that I normally do. I certainly can't sit there and have a look at the lap times that he put in at the back end, but I know they were fast. There's no doubt about that, and clinical as well. So not a scratch on that car at the end of the race. He's done an absolutely fantastic job, and thoroughly deserved. There wasn't a huge amount of luck that went into that win, that's for sure.
No, and to give you a few of the stats, folks, the fastest lap I can see recorded there in race number 2 was from Wayne Walker, a 120.55. Scott Gamble and Rain Campbell both recording a 120.82. Ken Latta a 120.81. So make no mistake, he absolutely had pace. There was not as much luck in it as I think he'd have us believe. And I am certainly very, very excited to see what Portland brings. I don't know if Ken will have raced it before in the Supercars or not. It's a new track to iRacing. Some of you may recall it only arrived, I believe it was last season, if memory serves, Josh. And
yeah, that's correct.
I've done a bit of racing there myself. It's one of the newer tracks that I'm a little familiar with. It's going to be a real struggle in a supercar, let me tell you. I'm really, really interested to see what we get there. But before we get to that, we do have to wrap up this round, and let's take a brief look at the provisional championship points. Wayne Walker remains out in front, but hasn't that gap fallen with Ken Latta's results tonight? 850 points for Walker, 813 for Ken Latta. Jamie Dyke looks like he may move up a spot. Rain Campbell dropping 1, but nothing in it between 3rd and 4th. Matt Vanderkruijm goes up a little, Scott Gamble drops a little further back. Surprisingly, Point and Varga and Rushworth unchanged in their positions after all of that. But of course, Allman, Stewart and Whiting benefiting quite a bit from their race results tonight, with Chad Varga and Sean van der Meulen not having the nights they would have hoped after they came together in race 2, and certainly cost themselves quite a number of points, dropping back to 13th and 14th. That said, this is only round 3. There is a drop round to be taken into consideration at some point. So this is all a bit of spitballing at this stage, really, isn't it, Josh?
Yeah, absolutely. It is. There's still plenty of racing to go this season. There'll be some more changes. I reckon another 2 weeks, and we can really start to pay attention to what's going on here. We are in reality only one bad round away from a complete shake-up for most of these drivers.
Gotta love motor racing for exactly that reason. That'll do it for us here tonight at Simple Racing Broadcasts. A massive thank you to everyone who's been along with us. In case you missed it, a quick wrap-up. Ken Latta coming away with the win in race number 2 tonight, keeping it clean and quick when it mattered most. It was really a textbook drive from him, a very well-deserved result. But how about Matt Vanderkruijm taking out race 1, backing up with P2 there in race 2, and it just proves that he's going to be a serious contender again this season after the disappointment of falling just short in season 1 due to missing a couple of those undroppable rounds. I'm sure undroppable is a word, Josh. We'll go with it. But with 3 rounds down, that championship field starting to take shape. Still a long road ahead of us, but the challenge next week at Portland going to be something completely different. So whether we will see the same drivers rise to the occasion or not remains to be seen. From everyone at Alliance Sim Racing and on behalf of major sponsors AA West Automotive and Quantum Tint Solutions, a massive thank you for joining us tonight. We'll see you all next time for round 4 when we do head to Portland International Raceway. Until then, do make sure you stay safe. From the booth and on behalf of Josh Harris, I'm Jared Cole, and it is goodbye for now.